My name is Clara, and I'm 29. I woke up the morning before my sister Sadie's wedding, reaching for my hairbrush, but my fingers grazed stubble. My heart stopped. In the mirror, my long hair was gone, hacked off scalp patchy. I was a stranger to myself. Last night my parents whispered I'd outshine Sadie. Now I know they cut my hair while I slept, thinking it dimmed my light. A single strand clung to my pillow, mocking me. Have you ever been betrayed by family and subscribed to hear how I face this? I stood frozen in my childhood bedroom, the old farmhouse creaking around me. The mirror still showed a stranger, my scalp raw and uneven. Downstairs, Sadie's laughter mixed with the clatter of dishes, wedding chaos in full swing. My hands shook as I pulled on a sweater, hiding the evidence of last night. I needed answers. The stairs groaned under my feet as I descended, each step heavier than the last. In the kitchen, Mom stirred, her coffee eyes fixed on the mug. Dad sat at the table, flipping through a newspaper, his smirk barely hidden. I took a breath, my voice low but steady. Why did you do it? Mom's spoon clinked against the mug, but she didn't look up. Do what, Clara? Her tone was sharp, like I was a child caught lying. You know what? My hair. Last night. My throat tightened, but I pushed on. You cut it while I was sleeping. Dad snorted, folding the paper. It's just hair. Don't make a scene before Sadie's big day. I stepped closer, my hands curling into fists. Just hair. You took something that was mine. Why? Mom finally met my eyes, her gaze cold. We trimmed it, Clara. That's all. You were going to overshadow Sadie like always. We had to balance things. Balance things. The words hit like a slap. I remembered the times Mom braided Sadie's hair but left mine tangled, saying I'd manage. Or when Dad praised Sadie's school projects while mine sat ignored. This wasn't new, but it was deeper, crueler. They'd planned this, waited until I was vulnerable. You think cutting my hair makes Sadie shine brighter? I asked, my voice cracking. You think that's fair? Dad leaned back, his chair creaking. Fair? You've always had it easy, Clara. People fawn over you. Let your sister have one day. I wanted to scream, to shake them until they saw me, not their twisted version of me. But the words stuck heavy in my chest. The kitchen felt smaller, the air thick with their indifference. I turned to leave, but Aunt Loretta stood in the doorway, her face pale. She'd heard everything. She pulled me into the hall, her voice a whisper. Clara, I'm so sorry. They've always been jealous of you. Even when you were a baby, people called you the beauty. It ate at your mom. Her pity burned worse than Mom's words. I didn't want to be the beauty or the problem. I just wanted to be their daughter. I slipped away from her, my eyes stinging, and locked myself in the bathroom. The mirror taunted me again. I brushed at the stubs, hoping to make sense of the mess, but they fell uneven, mocking my effort. Tears spilled over, hot and silent. I heard Sadie's voice outside, calling for Mom, carefree. She didn't know. Or did she? The thought twisted in my gut. I sank to the floor, clutching an old towel, my mind racing. I couldn't ruin her day, but I couldn't stay silent either. The weight of their betrayal pressed harder, and something inside me started to shift, sharp and unyielding. I stayed on the bathroom floor, the towel damp from my tears. The farmhouse hummed with wedding preparations, voices and footsteps swirling outside. Sadie's giggle cut through the door, bright and unbothered. I wanted to believe she was innocent in this, but doubt gnawed at me. I stood, splashing cold water on my face, trying to steady my shaking hands. My reflection was still wrong, the stubs of my hair a cruel reminder. I needed to move, to do something, but my feet felt glued. A soft knock broke my thoughts. Clara. You in there? Sadie's voice was light, like she was asking about the weather. I froze, my pulse spiking. Did she know I cracked the door just enough to see her standing there, her white dress half-zipped, a veil draped over her arm? She tilted her head, smiling. Can you help with my veil? It's all tangled. I stared at her, searching for a hint of guilt, but her eyes were clear, almost too perfect. "Sure," I mumbled, stepping out. My sweater felt heavy, hiding the truth. I followed her to the guest room, now a makeshift bridal suite. Ribbons and flowers spilled across the bed, and the air smelled of her perfume, sweet and overpowering. She handed me the veil, chatting about the florist's last-minute fixes. I nodded, my fingers fumbling with the delicate fabric, my mind screaming. As I pinned the veil, I caught her glancing at my reflection in the vanity mirror. Her smile flickered just for a second, and my stomach twisted. "You okay?" she asked, her tone too casual. "You seem off." I swallowed hard, the words clawing up my throat. "Mom and Dad cut my hair last night," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "While I was sleeping." Her hands paused, adjusting her earrings. "What? That's crazy." She laughed short and sharp, like I'd told a bad joke. "Why would they do that? To make sure I didn't outshine you." I watched her closely, waiting for a crack in her facade. Her lips parted, but she said nothing, turning back to the mirror. The silence was louder than any answer. My chest tightened, the air in the room thinning. She knew something, or worse, she didn't care. I stepped back, the veil pinned my hands, trembling. "Clara, don't be dramatic," she said finally, her voice softer now, almost pitying. "It's my wedding. Can you just be happy for me?" Her words landed like a punch. I wanted to grab her, to shake her until she saw my pain, but I just nodded, my jaw tight. "Yeah. Sure." I turned to leave, but my eyes caught something on the dresser, an old recipe book, Mom's favorite, peeking out of a bag. I don't know why I reached for it, but I did, flipping it open. Tucked inside was a photo from my prom, my hair long and shining, my smile wide. It wasn't Sadie's photo. It was mine, kept like a secret. My breath caught. Why did Mom have this? Was it a trophy, proof she could control me? I slipped the photo into my pocket, my heart pounding. Outside, guests were arriving, their chatter drifting through the open window. I overheard a cousin's voice, bright and curious. "Did you see Clara's new haircut? So bold." Another laughed, saying it looked like a bad DIY job. Shame burned my cheeks, hot and relentless. I couldn't face them, not yet. I slipped back to my room, the photo crumpled in my hand. Sadie's dismissal, Mom's hidden photo, the guests' whispers they wove together, tightening around my chest. I sat on the bed, staring at the floorboards worn from years of our footsteps. I wanted to hide, to disappear, but a spark flared inside me, sharp and stubborn. I wasn't done. Not yet. The day wasn't over, and neither was I. I slipped the prom photo into my pocket and left my room, the farmhouse buzzing with pre-wedding energy. The spark inside me flickered, but shame still clung heavy. I tied a scarf around my head, the fabric scratchy against my raw scalp, and headed to the barn venue. Guests milled about, sipping lemonade under string lights. Their eyes flicked to me, some curious, others smirking. Sadie's friends in their pastel dresses whispered behind their hands, giggling like I was the punchline. My cheeks burned, but I kept moving, clutching the scarf's knot. I found a spot near the bar, hoping to blend in. Mom appeared, her face tight, pulling me behind a hay bale. Her nails dug into my arm. "Clara, you better behave today," she hissed. "No tantrums. This is Sadie's moment." Her eyes darted to my scarf, a flicker of satisfaction crossing her face. I yanked my arm free, my voice low. "You think this is okay? Mutilating me to prop her up?" She stiffened lips, pursing. "Don't exaggerate. You always make everything about you." She turned away, smoothing her dress, as if I were a smudge she could wipe clean. My chest ached, her words slicing deeper than the scissors. I wanted to shout to make her see me, but the crowd's chatter drowned my thoughts. I retreated, my hands shaking, and spotted Dad across the lawn, talking to our cousin Nate. Nate laughed, clapping Dad's shoulder. I edged closer, catching Dad's voice. Clara needed humbling, he said loud enough for me to hear. Always flaunting her looks, stealing attention. This'll teach her. Nate nodded, chuckling like it was a clever prank. My stomach twisted, bile rising. My own father reducing me to a lesson. I turned away, my breath shallow, and bumped into Lucas Sadie's fiancé carrying a tray of glasses. "Hey, Clara," he said, his smile too bright. "You holding up?" His eyes lingered on my scarf, pity creeping in. I forced a nod, but my voice betrayed me. "Did you know what they did?" I asked, barely audible. His smile faltered, and he shifted, glancing toward Sadie, radiant by the flower arch. "Look, just let Sadie have this day. Okay? It's not about you." His words landed like a stone. Not about me. They'd carved away my identity, and I was supposed to smile through it. I stepped back, my throat tightening, and wandered to the edge of the barn. The music started signaling the ceremony was near. I leaned against a post, my mind replaying Lucas's dismissal. Dad's cruelty, Mom's grip. My family, the people who should have protected me, had turned me into a shadow. Then I heard Sadie's voice, sharp and annoyed, coming from behind a curtained area. "Clara's scarf is so dramatic," she told someone, probably Lucas. "She's making my day about her as usual." My heart stopped. I peered through a gap, seeing her adjust her veil, her face pinched. "It's my wedding. Why can't she just disappear?" Her words broke something inside me. My sister, the one I'd pinned that veil for, wanted me gone. My hands clenched, nails biting my palms. The spark I'd felt earlier flared hotter, but so did the pain, raw and jagged, threatening to swallow me whole. I stumbled away from the curtain, Sadie's words echoing in my skull. My chest felt like it was caving in, each breath sharp and shallow. The barn's lights blurred the music, a dull roar. I needed airspace, anything to stop the world from closing in. I pushed through the crowd, ignoring the curious glances, and found a quiet corner near the hay-stacked entrance. My scarf felt like a noose, but I didn't dare take it off. Not here, not now. I pressed my back against the rough wood, trying to steady myself. My mind churned, replaying every moment of the day. Mom's grip, Dad's cruel jab, Lucas's pity, and now Sadie's venom. My family wasn't just ignoring me, they were dismantling me piece by piece. I'd always known Sadie got the spotlight, but I thought we had some kind of bond, a thread tying us through the years. That thread was unraveling, and I was falling apart with it. A memory hit me unbidden. We were kids, maybe 8 and 10, drawing together at the kitchen table. Sadie sketched us holding hands, our stick figure dresses bright with crayon. I'd kept that drawing tucked in my wallet, a reminder of when we were a team. Now it felt like a lie. I reached for my purse, fumbling, and pulled out the crumpled paper. Our smiles stared back, innocent and untouched. My throat burned. How had we gotten here? Footsteps crunched nearby, and I shoved the drawing away. It was Nate, the cousin Dad had been talking to, holding a beer and grinning. "Clara, what's with the scarf? Going for a new vibe?" His tone was teasing, but his eyes lingered mocking. I forced a tight smile, my voice barely steady. "Just trying something different." He laughed too loud. "Well, it's bold. Dad said you needed a reality check. Guess this is it." He clinked his bottle against another guest's, walking off like he hadn't just gutted me. My hands trembled, the spark inside me drowned by a wave of humiliation. Even the extended family saw me as a problem, someone to be cut down. I turned back to the barn, the ceremony about to start. Guests were taking their seats, their chatter softening. I slipped into a row near the back, hoping to disappear. But then I saw Mom standing by the aisle, directing people like a stage manager. She caught my eye, her lips thinning. She mouthed, "Sit up straight," as if my posture was the issue. I sank lower, my nails digging into my palms. Sadie appeared at the entrance, her dress glowing under the lights. The crowd hushed all eyes on her. She was beautiful, radiant, everything a bride should be. But when she glanced my way, her smile tightened, a flash of something cold passing through her eyes. Was it guilt? Triumph? I couldn't tell, but it twisted the knife deeper. My sister, my blood, was complicit in this, and she was gliding toward her future, while I sat here broken. The music swelled, and the officiant began. I stared at the floor, my pulse pounding in my ears. Every word, every laugh from the crowd felt like a spotlight on my shame. I wanted to run, to scream, to make them all see what they'd done, but I was trapped, suffocating under the weight of their indifference. My family had carved me open, and the wound was still bleeding raw and relentless. The ceremony unfolded like a dream I wasn't part of. Sadie stood at the altar, her vows soft and sweet, while Lucas beamed beside her. I sat in the back row, my scarf tight, my hands knotted in my lap. The barn's twinkling lights felt mocking, casting shadows over my patched scalp. A kid in the row ahead, maybe 6, turned and pointed at me. "Why's her head like that?" he asked, loud enough for heads to turn. Snickers rippled through the crowd, sharp and slicing. My face burned, and I sank lower, wishing the floor would swallow me. Mom's glare found me from the front, her lips forming a silent command. "Don't you dare." Dad, seated nearby, chuckled with a neighbor, his ease a fresh wound. They didn't care. None of them did. Sadie's voice carried on, promising love and loyalty, but her earlier cold glance haunted me. My chest tightened, each breath a struggle. I was invisible, yet exposed, a spectacle in my own family story. Then it happened. As Sadie finished her vows, the kid's mother leaned over, whispering loudly to her friend. "Poor Clara, always attention-seeking. Bet she did this herself for pity." The words landed like a spark on dry grass. My hands shook, my pulse roaring in my ears. They thought I'd done this, that I'd mutilated myself for their attention. The lie was too much, a final twist of the blade. I stood, my legs unsteady, the scarf suffocating. Eyes turned, murmurs spreading. Mom's face hardened, her head shaking slightly, warning me to sit. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I moved toward the aisle, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. The officiant paused, confused, as I reached the side table where the guest book sat. Mom's purse was there, carelessly left open. My fingers brushed it, and I saw it, a lock of my hair tied with a ribbon tucked inside like a keepsake. My breath caught, raw and ragged. She'd kept it, a trophy of her control. The truth hit me. This wasn't just about Sadie's day. It was about erasing me, making sure I'd never outshine their chosen daughter. My vision blurred, tears, hot but unshed. I clutched the lock, my voice trapped in my throat. The barn felt smaller, the air thick with expectation. Sadie turned, her smile faltering, sensing the shift. Lucas frowned, stepping forward, but I didn't care. I took one step into the aisle, then another, the lock of hair burning in my hand. Every eye was on me, but for once, it wasn't about my looks or their pity. It was about the truth, clawing its way out. My mouth opened, but no words came, yet just a trembling silence. I was on the edge, teetering, ready to shatter everything they'd built around me. My steps echoed in the hushed barn, the lock of hair a weight in my fist. The crowd's whispers grew a tide of judgment. I stopped in the aisle, facing Sadie at the altar, her eyes wide, her bouquet trembling. Lucas reached for her arm, his face a mix of confusion and warning. I didn't care. The truth was a fire inside me, burning through my silence. I opened my hand, letting the ribboned lock fall to the floor. Gasps broke the silence, murmurs rising like a tide. "Clara, sit down," Mom hissed from the front, her voice cutting through the tension. Dad stood, his jaw tight, muttering to a guest. She's always been dramatic. Their dismissal fueled me, but my legs shook, betraying my resolve. I wanted to speak to scream what they'd done, but my throat closed, the words trapped. The officiant cleared his throat, urging the ceremony forward, but no one moved. Sadie stepped forward, her voice low but carrying. "What are you doing, Clara?" "This is my day." Her tone was laced with venom, her eyes glinting with something darker confirmation. She knew. Maybe not the scissors, but the intent. She'd wanted me dimmed, and now she played the victim. The realization hit like a fist, stealing my breath. My sister, my ally through childhood forts and late-night secrets, had let this happen. A voice broke the silence, Nate from the side, slurring slightly. "Let her talk. Maybe she'll explain that botched haircut." Laughter erupted, cruel and unrelenting, from scattered guests. My scalp prickled under the scarf, exposed even through the fabric. I looked at Mom, expecting defense, but she turned away, adjusting her necklace. Dad smirked, whispering to Nate, who laughed harder. My family stood united, not for me, but against me. I scanned the crowd, searching for one kind face. Aunt Loretta sat rigid, her hands clasped, eyes down. Even she wouldn't meet my gaze. The barn spun, the lights too bright, the air too thin. I was alone, surrounded by people who'd known me my whole life. The lock of hair lay at my feet, a symbol of their betrayal, but it wasn't enough to make them see. My knees buckled, and I gripped a chair, my voice still silent, my heart splintering. Sadie spoke again, louder now, addressing the crowd. "She's just jealous. Always has been. Can we move on?" Applause followed, hesitant but growing, as if her words had freed them. The officiant nodded, resuming the vows. I stood frozen, the world tilting, my pain laid bare and dismissed. Every laugh, every averted glance carved deeper. I was nothing to them, a footnote in Sadie's story, and the weight of that truth crushed me, leaving me hollow, gasping, with nowhere to turn. The ceremony resumed, Sadie's vows, a distant hum, as I stood frozen in the aisle, the lock of hair abandoned at my feet. The crowd's applause for her words stung, their dismissal a fresh wound. I stumbled out of the barn, the cool evening air hitting my face like a slap. My scarf clung to my scalp, heavy with shame, but I didn't adjust it. I found a bench by the gravel path, collapsing onto it, my hands trembling. The music from the reception drifted out, carefree and mocking. I wanted to disappear, to let their version of me win, the jealous, dramatic sister who'd ruined everything. But something stirred, a quiet pulse beneath the pain. I wasn't that person. They'd tried to break me, but I was still here, still breathing. My fingers brushed my pocket, feeling the crumpled prom photo I'd found in Mom's recipe book. I pulled it out, staring at my younger self, radiant and unbroken. That girl deserved better. Footsteps crunched behind me. Tessa, the caterer from earlier, approached, her apron smudged with flour. She sat beside me, silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "I saw what happened in there. You don't deserve this." Her voice was steady, grounding. I barely knew her, but her kindness cracked something open. "My family did something similar," she added. "Tried to make me small. I had to choose myself." Her words landed sharp and clear. Choose myself. I'd spent years dimming my light for Sadie, for Mom, for Dad, thinking it was love. But love didn't cut you down in your sleep. I looked at Tessa, her eyes warm but fierce. "How did you do it?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "How did you walk away?" "You start small," she said. "One step, one truth." She nodded toward the barn, where laughter spilled out. "They don't get to define you." I clutched the photo tighter, my resolve hardening. The reception was starting, speeches and toasts about to begin. I could stay out here, hide, let them write my story. Or I could go back not as their scapegoat, but as Clara raw and real. My heart pounded a mix of fear and fire. I stood brushing dirt from my dress and tucked the photo away. "Thank you," I whispered to Tessa. She nodded, squeezing my hand. I walked back to the barn, the music louder now, the crowd looser with wine. My scarf felt less like a shield, more like a choice. I slipped inside, weaving through dancing guests, my eyes scanning for the microphone at the head table. It sat, unattended, gleaming under the lights. My stomach twisted, but my feet kept moving. This was my step, my truth. I wasn't running anymore. The barn pulsed with music glasses clinking as guests swayed under the string lights. I reached the head table, my fingers grazing the microphone. My heart hammered, but Tessa's words echoed one truth. I pulled the scarf from my head, letting it fall to the floor. My scalp was bare, uneven, raw. Whispers spread, but I stood taller, my breath steadying. I took the mic, the weight of it grounding me. The band paused, and every eye turned a sea of faces frozen in surprise. I cleared my throat, my voice low but clear. "I need to say something." The room stilled, the air thick with tension. Sadie at the center table gripped Lucas's arm, her face pale. Mom stood, her hand at her throat, but I didn't falter. "Last night my parents cut my hair while I slept. They thought it would keep me from outshining Sadie today." Gasps broke the silence, murmurs rising like a tide. I pressed on my words, sharper now. "They said I needed humbling, that I was too much." Sadie knew, and she let it happen. I looked at her, my sister, her eyes wide but unreadable. Lucas shifted his jaw tight, but I didn't stop. "I've spent years shrinking for this family, thinking it was love. But love doesn't do this." I gestured to my head, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. Mom stepped forward, her voice shrill. "Clara, stop this nonsense." Dad joined her, his face red. "You're ungrateful, always causing trouble." Their words bounced off me hollow now. I turned to the crowd, my gaze sweeping over cousins, friends, strangers. "I'm done hiding. I deserve better. I'm leaving this family unless they own what they did." The room erupted, voices overlapping, shocked disbelief, a few claps. Aunt Loretta stood, her hands coming together slowly, her eyes wet. One by one, others joined a scattered applause that grew, shifting the air. Sadie pushed through the crowd, her dress rustling, and stormed out, Lucas trailing her. Mom sank into a chair, tears streaming, while Dad shouted, "You'll regret this." But their chaos couldn't touch me anymore. I set the mic down, my hands steady. A glint caught my eye. Sadie's old hairpin one she'd given me when we were kids, tucked in my dress pocket. I pulled it out, its tiny pearls dull but familiar. I pinned it to my dress, not for her, but for the girl I'd been the one who deserved to be seen. The crowd's noise faded as I walked toward the exit, my steps deliberate. I didn't look back. Outside, the night was quiet, the stars sharp above. I stood still, the hairpin cool against my chest, my truth finally spoken. I woke to sunlight filtering through unfamiliar curtains, the hum of a coffee maker pulling me from sleep. I was at Haley's apartment, a small studio across town where I'd landed after the wedding. My dress from that night hung over a chair, Sadie's hairpin still pinned to it, glinting faintly. My scalp itched, a reminder of what I'd lost, but the weight in my chest felt different now, less crushing, more like a bruise. I'd spoken my truth, and the world hadn't ended. Not yet. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a string of voicemails from Mom. I hesitated, then played the first. Her voice was strained words tumbling fast. "Clara, how could you do this to us? To Sadie's wedding? We were just trying to help her." A pause, then softer. "You didn't have to make a scene." The next was sharper, blaming me for the guests' whispers, for Dad's anger. "No apology, just accusations wrapped in tears. I deleted them, my hands steady. Her words didn't cut like they used to. I checked my texts, nothing from Sadie, but Dad had sent a single message. "You're cut off. Don't expect a dime." I stared at the screen, expecting panic, but it didn't come. Money had always been his leash, a way to keep me close compliant. Now it was gone, and I felt oddly free, like a door had cracked open. Haley knocked, poking her head in. "Coffee's ready. You okay?" She'd taken me in last night. No questions asked, her couch, now my temporary home. I nodded, following her to the kitchen. Over steaming mugs, she told me about her own break from her family, a controlling dad, a mom who looked the other way. "It hurts," she said, stirring sugar, "but it's like shedding a skin you didn't know was choking you." Her story settled in me, a mirror to my own. I sipped my coffee, the warmth grounding me. "I don't know what's next," I admitted, my voice quiet. "I just know I can't go back." Haley smiled, her eyes kind but firm. "You don't have to. You started something last night. Keep going." My phone buzzed again, a text from Sadie, the first since I'd walked out. "You ruined everything it read. I didn't ask for this, but I didn't stop it. Happy now." My stomach twisted, her half-admission a fresh sting. She hadn't wielded the scissors, but she'd stood by, letting Mom and Dad tear me down. I set the phone down, my fingers cold. Her words were a confession, but they offered no comfort, only a hollow ache. I stood, needing to move, and wandered to Haley's window. The street below was alive, kids, biking, a dog chasing its tail. Life kept going, even when mine felt paused. Sadie's text lingered, a weight I couldn't shake. I'd wanted her to see me, to understand, but she'd chosen her own story over mine. The silence between us was louder than the wedding's chaos, and it left me stranded, caught between grief and a fragile resolve. I left Haley's kitchen, her words about shedding skin lingering. My phone stayed silent, now no more messages to dodge. I sat on her couch, staring at the chipped paint on the wall, my mind tracing the edges of Sadie's text. Her admission wasn't enough. It was a crack in the door, not an open one. I wanted to reply, to demand more, but my fingers wouldn't move. Instead, I pulled on my shoes and headed out, needing air to clear the fog in my chest. The town was quiet, shops closed for Sunday. I walked past the bakery where Sadie and I used to buy cupcakes as kids, splitting the last one down the middle. The memory stung sharp and fleeting. My reflection in the window caught me off guard. My hair, short and uneven, framed a face I barely knew. I touched my scalp, the stubs softer now, and kept walking, my steps heavy but deliberate. At the corner, I passed a bulletin board plastered with flyers. One caught my eye, a job posting for a local salon seeking stylists to help clients feel their best. My heart skipped. I'd always loved doing hair, braiding friends' locks for prom, experimenting with curls. The idea of helping others reclaim their confidence felt like a lifeline. I snapped a photo of the flyer, my hands steadier than I expected. It wasn't a plan, but it was a start. Back at Haley's, I found an email waiting, a confirmation for a therapy session I'd booked on a whim after leaving the wedding. The appointment was tomorrow, a chance to untangle the knots of my family's betrayal. I stared at the screen, the word therapy, both daunting and necessary. I'd carried their voices too long. Mom's criticism, Dad's indifference, Sadie's silence. It was time to hear my own. Haley came home, tossing her keys on the counter. "You look different," she said, tilting her head. "Lighter, maybe?" I shrugged, unsure how to explain the shift. I told her about the salon job, the therapy. She nodded, her smile quiet but real. "You're building something new, Clara. That's not small." Her words settled in me, a faint warmth against the ache. Before bed, I opened my suitcase, pulling out a stack of old clothes, Sadie's hand-me-downs, dresses I'd worn to please Mom. I folded them into a donation bag, each piece a weight lifted. The bag sat by the door, ready for the shelter downtown. I kept one item, a plain scarf, not the one from the wedding, but one I'd worn to my first job interview. It felt like mine, a reminder of who I'd been before they tried to rewrite me. I lay down the apartment quiet, Haley's snores soft through the wall. The job flyer, the therapy email, the donation bag, they were small steps, but they were mine. Yet Sadie's text haunted me, her half-truth, a wound that wouldn't close. I'd shaken their world, but at a cost. My family was slipping away, and the silence between us was a chasm cold and vast, leaving me to wonder if I'd ever find solid ground again. 6 months had passed since the wedding, and I was settling into my new apartment, a small one-bedroom with creaky floors and a view of the park. The salon job had become my anchor, each day spent shaping curls, dyeing strands, listening to clients' stories. Their trust grounded me, their smiles a quiet reward. My hair was growing back, a short bob now, framing my face in a way that felt new, like a second chance. I stood in my kitchen, stirring tea, the morning light soft through the window. Work was more than a paycheck. Yesterday, I'd helped a woman maybe my age who'd lost her hair to chemo. She cried when I styled her wig, saying she felt like herself again. I'd knotted my throat tight, knowing that feeling too well. Helping her and others was stitching me back together, one small act at a time. I sipped my tea, the warmth spreading, and thought about how far I'd come. Therapy had helped 2 weekly sessions where I'd learned to name my pain without letting it define me. My phone buzzed, a message from Tessa, the caterer who'd become a friend. She'd invited me to a community art event tonight, a chance to make something real, she said. I smiled, setting the mug down. Tessa had a way of nudging me forward, her own story of surviving family chaos, a steady light. I'd never painted before, but the idea sparked something. Maybe I could create instead of just rebuild. I walked to my closet, pulling out a simple dress, one I'd bought myself, not a hand-me-down. As I dressed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were clearer now, less shadowed. I wasn't the Clara from the wedding, nor the girl from the prom photo. I was someone new, carved by choices I'd made, not ones forced on me. The thought settled calm and sure, like a stone in a riverbed. At the salon, the day passed in a blur of scissors and chatter. I worked on a teen's prom updo, her excitement infectious. She talked about her dreams, college, travel, a life beyond this town. I listened, weaving her hair into soft waves, and felt a pang of pride, not just for her, but for me. I was part of her moment, helping her shine. It was small, but it mattered. By closing time, my hands were tired, but my heart was full. I headed to the art event, a warehouse space filled with easels and paint-splattered tables. Tessa greeted me, handing me a brush. "No rules," she said, her grin wide. "Just feel it." I stood before a blank canvas, the room humming with quiet focus. I dipped the brush in blue, the color of early dusk, and started to paint. Lines became shapes, then a figure, a woman with short hair standing under a wide sky. It was me, not as I was, but as I wanted to be, free, unbroken, whole. The paintbrush moved blue, blending into gold, my canvas taking shape under the warehouse lights. Tessa worked nearby, her own painting, vibrant with reds and greens. Around us, others painted too, their stories spilling onto canvas, grief, hope, survival. The room felt alive, a quiet community of people who'd faced their own battles. I set my brush down, stepping back. The woman I'd painted stood tall, her short hair catching the light, her eyes fixed on a horizon I couldn't yet see. I exhaled, a weight lifting. Tessa glanced over, nodding at my work. "That's you, isn't it?" she asked, her voice soft. I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. "Maybe who I'm becoming," I said. She squeezed my shoulder, returning to her canvas. I stood there, the hum of the room wrapping around me, and realized I wasn't alone. Not anymore. These strangers, Tessa, the clients at the salon, they were my people now. Not by blood, but by understanding. I left the event, with my painting tucked under my arm, the night air cool against my skin. Back at my apartment, I propped the canvas against the wall, its colors vivid even in the dim light. I sat on the floor, my tea cold now, and thought about Aunt Loretta. She'd called last week asking to visit, her voice hesitant. I'd agreed, unsure why. She arrived the next day, her familiar perfume filling my small living room. She looked older, her hands fidgeting with her purse. "Clara," she began, eyes down. "I should have spoken up years ago. Your mom's always been hard on you, and I stayed quiet. I'm sorry." Her words were heavy, carrying years of unspoken truths. I listened, my hands still feeling the old ache, but no anger. "I know," I said simply. "But I'm okay now." She looked up, surprised, then nodded, tears brimming. I offered her tea, and we sat, not fixing the past, but letting it rest. Before she left, I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine. The act was small, a release of something I'd carried too long. I didn't need her guilt, or Mom's, or Sadie's. I needed space to grow. After she was gone, I walked to the fridge where a childhood drawing hung, a magnet holding it in place. It was Sadie and me, stick figures under a bright sun, from a time when love felt simple. I touched it, my fingers tracing the faded crayon, and let it stay. Not as a wound, but as a memory. I turned off the light, the apartment quiet, the painting glowing faintly across the room. My heart was steady, my breath slow. I wasn't healed, not fully, but I was here, standing on my own ground. The past was behind me, a shadow I no longer feared. I closed my eyes, the woman on the canvas watching over me, and for the first time in months, I slept without dreaming of scissors. A year had passed since Sadie's wedding, and I was walking through the park near my apartment, the late afternoon sun warm on my shoulders. My hair, now a chin-length bob, swayed as I moved, each strand a small victory. I carried a thermos of coffee, a habit I'd picked up savoring these quiet strolls where the world felt softer. The park was alive with joggers, kids chasing kites, and couples on blankets. I found a bench under an oak tree, settling in, my breath steady. Life had found a rhythm. The salon was my haven, where I shaped hair and shared stories, helping clients find confidence in their reflections. Last week, I dyed a young man's hair blue, his grin wide as he saw himself anew. Moments like that filled me, reminding me I could give what I'd once needed. Therapy, too, had become a steady thread, teaching me to hold my pain without letting it steer me. I wasn't fixed, but I was learning to live with the cracks. I sipped my coffee, watching a squirrel dart across the grass. My phone buzzed. A letter from Sadie had arrived at the salon, forwarded from my old address. I'd read it this morning, her handwriting neat but unfamiliar. "I'm sorry," she wrote, "for not stopping them. I was selfish. It wasn't a full reckoning, but it was hers." I didn't reply. The words had landed light but real, like leaves falling. I tucked the letter away, letting it be her truth, not mine to carry. At the salon, I'd met Piper, a teenage girl who came in last month, her eyes downcast. Her stepmom had mocked her appearance, calling her plain unworthy. I'd listened, my heart echoing her hurt, and styled her hair into soft curls, showing her she was enough. When she smiled, hesitant but real, I saw myself in her, the me who'd stood in that barn, broken but fighting. Helping Piper felt like closing a circle, a quiet redemption I hadn't expected. I leaned back on the bench, the oak's shade cool. My life wasn't grand, no big wins, no fairy tale endings, but it was mine. I'd built it from the ground up, the apartment, with its mismatched mugs, The salons hummed these walks where I could just be. The park's noise faded, and I closed my eyes, the thermos warm in my hands. The past was there always, but it didn't own me anymore. I was here whole in my own way, ready to keep going. The park's breeze stirred, carrying the scent of cut grass. I stood from the bench, my thermos empty, and wandered toward a clearing where a small sapling stood, its leaves catching the fading light. I'd planted it months ago, a quiet act, after a therapy session, choosing to root something new in this world. Kneeling, I brushed dirt from its base, my fingers gentle. It was small, fragile, but growing much like me. I smiled, the act grounding me in a way words never could. Later that week, I spoke at a local event, a gathering for people rebuilding after family rifts. The room was modest folding chairs and coffee urns, but the air held weight. I stood at the podium, my voice steady, sharing my story, not the wedding's chaos, but the quiet steps after the salon, Piper's smile this park. People nodded, some wiping tears, their own stories reflected in mine. I wasn't special, just someone who'd chosen to keep walking, and that was enough. Back home, I sat at my table, a single lamp glowing. I'd kept a notebook from therapy filled with thoughts I'd once been afraid to name. Flipping through, I saw my growth in the messy ink anger, softening fear, fading clarity, emerging. I wrote a new line, I am enough. Simple, but heavy. It wasn't about winning or proving them wrong. It was about claiming my space, my worth, without needing their approval. The lesson came clear, not in a flash, but a slow dawn. Family isn't just blood. It's the ones who see you, who lift you when you're low. Sometimes you have to let go of those who hurt you, not out of spite, but to protect your light. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. I'd learned to hold love and loss together, to forgive, without forgetting to build a life that felt true. That was my freedom, hard-won and mine. I closed the notebook, the room still. The sapling, Piper, the event, they were proof I was more than my scars. I'd found my people, my purpose in the ordinary moments that made me whole. The past was a shadow, but I stood in the light now, ready for whatever came next. What's a moment when you had to choose yourself, even if it hurt? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, please like, subscribe, or share to spread this journey. Thank you for listening, for being here. Here's to healing, to finding our way one step at a time.